So this is the end of the fourth turn, of which is now September 15th. A couple interesting things happened here. The Allied Air Force was completely shut down. And then in the event, the German Air Force cannot refit their Air Force for lack of aviation fuel for till the 29th of September for 5 turns. So the only air units up are the ME-1, the Falkenwolf, and the ME-262 jets up there in Eindhoven. So they're covering the canal here, but didn't do much because the Allies didn't use their Air Force, which made using supply a lot because they had to burn artillery, but they did get over Albert Canal and a smaller canal there, totally punched through. And the Germans counterattacked, which worked and didn't work because the British 7th Armor there, brigade, got a supply roll and killed a unit and forced everybody back. So that's good for the Commonwealth. Over here is just a little interesting problem for the Commonwealth, because moving in here with all these canals and the terrain really negates all the armor, and you need infantry to get more hitting power, but basically you can use the armor for the action rating and infantry for the combat power. For the German side, I don't know if I'm giving up the ground a little too easily, just shifting guys into the hedgehogs and more northernly covering the port and the canal. Thinking of keeping the full divisions up there right now for the moment, and then slowly break them down and sneak them over the ferry, which I could probably hold because the ferry goes away in end of September. So hold that little pocket as long as possible to hold off on Antwerp. The other counterattacks that the Germans did, they killed a recon unit up there from the 2nd Armor. It was over the Meuse River. And over here they attacked American 2nd Armor, just forced them back, but they lost a unit. Not good. And the armored unit. With the exploit on there, killed a artillery unit. I don't think I'll move them any further than that. Which kind of left an artillery unit out there and got hit, taken out. So the Allies lost that. Overextended themselves, not paying attention. Gotta remove the DG. All quiet down here, trying to pull out of the pocket here around Dijon. Since the French armor came down here, basically cut most of the railroad. Don't want to lose all these units, so I'm trying to move them as fast as I can without putting everybody in strategic movement, which would be bad. On to turn 5. So this is the end of turn 5. We have 3 more turns left in September, which is important for the ferry here that allows 3 RE for the Germans to get over. And looking at the amount of force that's in there, and I need to get a lot of those units out of there to help the defense along the peninsula here and Antwerp, slow that down, because once that ferry goes, it's only a sea cap of 1 and only marginal supply for those units, and they could survive there for a bit, but if I can get rid of more units there and have it maintain with the supply there, I can hold out quite a long time. But if the Commonwealth get up and cut the peninsula there, much more problematic of breaking out, and whether or not using those units over here would be better, because the British reinforced this time, but the random event made supply for this turn extremely costly for the Allies. For he had to use 1T for every unit to move due to lack of fuel. So that slowed the Americans here, allowed the Germans to kind of pocket the Americans coming over the Meuse. And a couple learning this with the supply, so tight for the Allies is you have to pick your attacks and hope you have enough supply to keep it, but you can't do multiple things like attack up here and try to get over the Albert Canal at the same time, or the Americans pretty much they're set with their supply if they can get a lot, and they've been rolling a bit better. But down here with mostly 3rd Army in the center map is kind of hodgepodge, trying to figure out how to get your units up and where to attack, with the Germans reinforcing along the old Maginot Line, which is hedgehogs for them, and trying to build up this ridge line. And it doesn't help that I got the headquarters on the other side of that line. I can't use the supply for the 4th Armor, because the 4th Armor has to use whatever's in this 3rd zone, which comes back on over here. And now that the French have actually taken Dijon, that I can bring the variable stuff right here in Dijon. The other one is Belfort over here for this map area. Germans are holding out, trying to pull out as much as they can, and moving supply around. So the Germans, it's kind of can't trade too much space like in Eastern fronts. But the terrain is much better. But the forces is kind of weaker, but you don't have to defend every hex almost. And so that's turn 5. The French are actually doing well up on here, because everybody was kind of spread out. They got around a few guys. But Americans are kind of bogged down here. Air Force in this turn has been poor die rolling. And we'll see what turn 6 has this. So this is the end of turn 6 here. We're looking up on map A, on the German pocket along the coast of Holland and France and Belgium. And British tried to attack, tried to force to break the hedgehog line. Germans sneaking guys over, but for the British, they actually got over the canal and got on the other side of the canal to hit the other Antwerp hex, which is important. But they kind of broke out more here. The Germans didn't really have anything mobile enough to get that pocket blocked. But the Germans countered down here to cut the lone road over the canal, cut all those armor units off. But British did some lucky rolls and maintained. And Americans and British kind of holding down here, pushing the line here, making more problematic for the Germans keeping this far forward line in the Ardennes. Might pull back as needed. But as the Germans are forming a line along the river there, and as a fallback, kind of getting units in the rear. Germans had a problem of running out of fuel, shortages on this turn, but the Allies want to do so much but have so limited supply. Americans push forward against Metz on the outskirts. Germans counterattack. Germans lost a couple steps. Forced the Americans back, but it's a bit problematic there. All quiet down here, but on the southern front here, the French making this portion untenable for the Germans, cutting the rail net, forcing the Germans out. Americans kind of just stalling out there, forcing the Germans to put all this effort there, but looking at the map as playing this first time, good defensive line from the mountains to the Swiss border there, down there, and run along the mountains to the river, and up to the line covering the front of Metz is the German plan. But as the Americans are running slow on supply, or mismanagement on my part, is keeping the Allies from pushing forward as quickly as would like. But with the air has not been cooperating for the Allies to, using hip shooting on clear days. Everything's being limited or no flight for one turn, which is brutal. And so onward to turn 7.